scrape them off and they go into compost.
Right, exactly. I mean, I bag mine up.
But yeah, we've gone to remove them. And they kill the mites, but we had some negative results this year with them. Just in the 3 bees that we used, they drove all the bees, the queen right up into the supers.
Yeah.
Away from, I mean, it was interesting. We lost one queen out of 20 within this year for the first time also.
Well, I was thinking I should have left them on, but I didn't want to not follow the directions because it didn't look like a lot of it had been touched.
From my point of view, you did the right thing.
Okay.
Yep, they're pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Question?
Since we're getting into winterizing,
Yes.
can you give us some tips, please?
Sure. So, who's pulled all their supers already? Who still has some supers on? So this is the time to get your supers off and weigh your colonies. If you're, depending on your bees and your size of equipment, my 8-frame equipment, full 2 deep colony should weigh about 120 pounds if it's going to make it through winter with a full set of bees. That's everything bottom board all the way up to the cover. And if it's lighter than that, then I need to either put some honey back or I need to feed them to bring it up to 120. And your feeding should be done in the middle of October. Down here, you might get a few more days. If you continue feeding past the middle of October with liquid feed, they won't have time to convert it into evaporated enough honey substitute such that it would be too liquid and it would give them dysentery in the winter. And so you don't want to just continue feeding right through November. So give them everything they need, give it to them all at once, give it to them now, and be done. And then if you want to give them fondant or sugar bricks or something later because you don't feel that they're still heavy enough, that's fine. But don't keep giving them liquid feeds past the middle of October.
How many boxes are you overwintering?
So we tend to overwinter in 2 deeps. We've had a few yards that we've experimented with 3 deeps, and it's killer.
It's a killer?
It's killer for the beekeeper. They do extremely well in 3 deeps. The top deep is almost invariably completely full of honey. I just got really sick of lifting off those deeps full of honey to inspect the brood nests and to do mite counts and stuff like that. But everything being equal, they survive extremely well. There's no feeding at all.
And how are you doing your weighing?
How do we weigh? Okay, you take a spring bathroom scale, not the digital kind because they break through easily, and you set it on an inner cover. And you take your hive and you tip it away from you. Okay, so break it loose from the pallet or from the hive stand because sometimes they get stuck, and you want the bottom board to stay attached. You tip the whole thing away from you, and you take the inner cover with the bathroom scale on it, and the dial is towards you.
So the inner cover bathroom scale.
So the bathroom scale is sitting on the inner cover. That's just to give it something to rest on, okay?
Yeah.
And you tip the hive away from you with one hand, and you slide the bathroom scale halfway under it, and then you tip it back towards you until it's balanced on the near edge of the bottom board at a 45-degree angle, and you're holding it with one hand. But all the weight is on the scale, but you haven't picked it up. All you've done is tipped it towards you, and as you tip it towards you, it rests on the scale. Then you read the number on the scale, and you write it on the hive, and then you tip it back, and you pull the scale out, and you do the next one. And it takes about 45 seconds to
Do you
do each
multiply
hive.
that by 2?
Nope.
You're weighing the whole hive.
You're weighing the whole hive because you've tipped it back towards you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the hive, right? This is the hive. You tip it away from you, you slide the bathroom scale under it, and you tip it back. And it's crooked now towards you, but all the weight of the hive is on my hand, which is equivalent to the bathroom scale. And so I've seen rigs where people use their tractor and a spring scale, and they put straps on the hive, and they actually pick it up, and they read the spring scale, except the hive bounces, and all the bees come out and try and sting the tractor. Don't do that.
Okay.
Just use your bathroom scale and slide it under and tip the hive onto it. It's very fast. It might not be 100% accurate, but I can tell you after doing it for more than a decade, it is good enough. Yep. You can also simply go through, if you only have 1 or 2 hives, if you're checking this time of year and you have a warm day, just go through. If the upper box is mostly or completely full of honey, you're good, you're done. Often what happens is there was brood in the middle of the upper box, and there's honey in the outside 2 or 3 frames, and then there's this big void in the middle. That's what happens is if they raise brood late, and there isn't much of a fall flow. I don't know what you guys get for fall flow down here, but in the Champlain Valley, we often don't get much of a goldenrod flow at all.
We got a big one.
It's strong.
Okay, so you guys might have no problem at all, but some years we'll be loaded and some years we won't. And so what we'll do is we'll feed them enough to fill in that empty space in the middle. Otherwise, they'll end up on one side and they'll eat half the honey that's over here, and then they won't be able to get over to the other side. So we want it to be continuous. So for each deep frame that is empty, you want to feed them 7 pounds. Each deep frame holds 7 pounds of honey. A gallon of 2-to-1 sugar syrup is equivalent to 10 pounds. And so you can just do the math. If you're short 3 frames that are empty that you want to fill up, that's 21 pounds. You'd give them 2 gallons of feed in your hive top feeder and you'd be done. And as soon as they suck it down, you'd take the feeder off and you'd be finished feeding. Does that make sense? Okay.
What about leaving honey super on?
That's even better. As long as it's full and it's complete and capped. You know, don't leave anything partial on there.
Okay.
Yep.
It has to be a full super.
Yep, if it's not full, what will happen is they'll move up into it and they'll eat what's there and then they'll run out. They don't kind of pick and choose. It's not like they can say, oh, we'll eat the honey in these 2 frames that are full and then we'll go back down in the deep and we'll eat this honey over here on the side. They're very limited in how much they can move once it gets real cold.
Okay.
And so you'll get clusters that are starving and honey's right over here. And so you just want to make sure that every honey frame is touching another honey frame so that no matter where they end up, they have access to another honey frame as they move through the honey. And they tend to like to move up. So if they're in the deep and you left a super on, they'll eat the honey that's within the cluster, then they'll move up into the super. And then if that super is only partial, they'll run out before winter's over.
Okay.
Okay, so leaving full supers on is fine. If you have partial supers or uncapped honey, extract it. Don't bottle it because it's too moist. Just feed it back to the bees. Just put it in the feeder and give it to them and they'll store it where they need it, which is in the feed.
What I did is I had a few supers that one side was partially capped and the other side was open.
Yep,
Instead of feeding them the sugar water, I put that back in on the super box and just let them draw the uncapped stuff back out. Instead of feeding them like sugar water.
yeah, so you just let them finish it.
I've been doing that, thanks
That's what
to,
we talked about.
exactly,
Where
thanks to the recommendation.
we put a inner cover,
Yep.
put an empty super on top, and you put those unfinished frames.
So you're
up
just
there.
letting them
Yeah.
feed off of it
Yeah.
right there. Yeah, that works too. Same concept. You're feeding it back to them. Sometimes that works, sometimes
Sometimes they move
They-
up there and go.
Sometimes they move up there and keep storing honey in it, so it's a gamble. But most of the time it works.
They've been cleaning them.
That's awesome.
So,
Yep. Adding the extra deep makes a big difference. Some guys try it right above the inner cover, and that's more of a crapshoot.
Now you're saying that over the inner cover, you put an empty box and then you put the one you want them to draw out above that.
No, actually, they're gonna rob it out, not draw it out.
Rob.
Yep.
But you're saying I want an empty one in between.
Right. If you just put the one you want to rob out right above the inner cover,
They'll move in.
sometimes they'll rob it out, and sometimes they'll move in and continue working on that super like they were gonna keep
Any
it.
size empty.
Yeah, it can be a medium or a shallow. It doesn't matter, but it's that break that makes them see it as no longer part of the cluster. And then it becomes a feeder essentially.
With your bee space.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Well, if you do it this time of year, even though you've violated the bee space, they aren't drawing comb. It's too cold, so you aren't going to run into problems. Which is how we can get away with putting empty boxes on with feed cans in them.
would you recommend removing queen excluder
Yep.
before wintering?
Get it off this time of year, absolutely. Yep. You don't want the queen to be trapped when the workers move up, so wherever your queen excluder is, even if it's up on the top, just take it off.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah,
I had a queen that, from a super seeder that was late in the season, and I just decided to alcohol her and combine that colony with another one that needed some help recently. But when part of my reasoning was I thought she was a drone layer. But once I got all the bees off the frames and I started looking at the frames more closely, I actually saw a lot more larvae than I thought she had laid at all. But I didn't know, my question is, at what point can you tell the larvae is going to be a drone versus a worker? Does that change in shape come really early, or is it, no?
it's really hard to tell.
So I did the right thing.
And it'd be
So I really think
little
she
girls,
was,
yeah.
I really think she was a drone, or mostly a drone.
So you can get queens that are completely a drone layer because they didn't mate or because they were raised so poorly that they can't mate or they can't settle once they've mated. You also can get queens that are kind of in between, and we call it misfires. And so when we're catching queens, you'll see a bunch of actual worker brood, and then you'll see these drones kind of sticking through it. That sometimes happens when a young, newly mated queen is just ramping up to start laying. But it also happens when you've got a queen that mated poorly, or something's wrong with her. And so in either case, unless she settles down, then you get nice full frames of worker brood, she's gone.
It's too late to give her that. If it were any other time of the season, I would have gotten her.
Right, I think pinching her off and combining is not a bad idea because a queen like that is not going to build up to make it through.
That's true.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
You're
much.
very welcome. Thanks for putting up with a queenery talk that was really for Jeff.
Like a throwaway.
All right.
You want to take that?
Sure.
Future presentations?
Okay.
Jack has one.
Excellent, excellent. I need to paint it red.
Printed that up. So, what else is there?
If they want to just give me a little money for gas. Yeah, you're very welcome.
Actually, I did bee scraper.
Oh, nice.
Wintertime.
So that goes in the entrance and then you can just clear the bottom.
Pull that out. Would you like that?
Very cool.
You got 1,000 hats.
You know, we actually do that sometimes when we're out checking snoopers.
My question was.
You can, I guess you can make yourself.
Yeah, well, that's scrap copy.
What is that, number 10 wire?
I don't know. Which size? 3/8, just seemed a little small for me.
So, yeah, what is this, half?
That's half-inch OD, so.
Yeah, so I said 3/8, and I think mine is. You want a little extra around the center.
You can go bigger.
No, I think half is just good.
Folks, we got a couple more prizes still. Real quick, your last numbers. 2996.
Yeah, $1.
2996. There you go. 2995. Wow. Who came out? $2,999. That's Ashley.
But you have to step right. We talked about that this week. My wife. Talked to kids.
3166.
In real time.
There you go. Thank you very much, folks. venue, we'll let you know about our dinner. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're so welcome, Jeff. It's nice.
I will get, I'll find the business card. Marty should recommend, I never do that thing. I said, this is
Anybody who's interested next Thursday,
Do you know what to come to Bennington next week?
the Bennington beekeepers are having a meeting next Thursday night at 7 o'clock at the Vermont Veterans Home in Bennington. And our speaker is Kirk Webster. He doesn't speak a lot, so it's really nice to have him come. We start with a potluck supper, everybody's welcome. And he's going to talk about 25 years as a commercial treatment for beekeepers.
Next Wednesday?
Next
Thursday.
Thursday
Next
night,
Thursday.
7 o'clock in Bennington.
Great club, that's who we've stolen everything from.
That's right, that's what I've seen you before.
7:30.
No. 103 to 155 and 100. Well, I was stuck on that.
Jack came by once ago, and 30.
Oh, no, I come down that way, I think I come down the hill.
That's,
Yeah, I was coming from Right, thanks for the time you're here.
I'll get the information.
Yeah.
The shirts out to you right away.
If you can do it right away, I was one of the guys who requested hello service. I emailed him all the time today. So I need to follow up with this. If I have that information. Email it to me tonight.
Take a look out.
Let's grab it. So well,